Hey everyone, welcome to another modern set review. Today I'll be going over some modern playable and unplayable cards coming out of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. I gotta say, even though we're still in the power down phase of new Magic sets, or at least non-premium sets, a lot of cool cards were printed in Innistrad Midnight Hunt that really got me excited. Not all of them I think are going to see widespread modern play, but a lot of them are going to be making appearances in my future brews. So let's get started. Before we do though, as I usually debate you all at the beginning, if you haven't subscribed already to this channel, I would really appreciate your subscription today. Hitting that red subscribe button down below. It really goes a long way. It's, it's another number, but that really helps the YouTube algorithm, helps others find my channel. Hitting the like button and even the notification bell also helps me out a lot, so I would really appreciate that. Alright, so first card that got me the most excited, and it's not even really going to see that much play in Modern, is Suspicious Stowaway. So if you have seen or have not seen my Temur Rogues deck techs in the past, I highly suggest you check those out after this video. I really love my Temur Rogues deck. It's such a fun deck. It's such a fun Modern deck. It plays really well in Modern. It always has. Even in the current meta, I believe it does pretty well. And I used to play Looter Il Core. Well, not anymore. But let's take a look at Looter Il Core real quick. For a colorless and a blue, it has Shadow. For a while, Shadow, there was really no other creatures in Modern playing with Shadow. Now we do, with the Duraki or whatever. I don't even know the name by heart. You all know what I'm talking about. That black creature that exiles all cards going to the graveyards. Anyway. So now Shadow is a thing, which makes Looter Il Core slightly worse. But before that, it was basically unblockable. And whenever it dealt damage to a player, you would draw a card and discard a card. So it had a looting effect. It played really well in my Temur Rogues deck. But now we have Suspicious Stowaway, which is basically an upgrade in every single way. So let's take a look at Suspicious Stowaway. Another 1/1 for 2. One colorless, one blue. Human Rogue Werewolf, so it's also a rogue, which is very important as a creature type for my Rogues deck. Suspicious Stowaway can't be blocked, so period. So it just says it doesn't have Shadow or anything, just can't be blocked. Awesome. Whenever it deals damage to a player, draws a card, discard a card, so you also have a looting effect. And it also flips. If it didn't flip, if it was just that, it was already a huge upgrade. But when it does flip, it's a 2/1 again. Whenever it deals damage to a player, you just draw a card. So now you're just cantripping. This is beautiful. It's amazing. I'm so happy. So just, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I don't think it's going to be seeing much Modern play, but awesome card. Suspicious Stowaway. I'm thrilled. I can't wait to get brewing with it. Okay. So let's get to some cards that I think seem like they could have been played. Some people got excited about it, but in the end, I don't think they're going to be making much of a splash in Modern. Starting with Willow Guys. So I really still want to find a shell for Willow Guys, but I just think it's too limited. I think if we were in the power up phase in Modern sets, this would have been a bit more broken. But the fact of the matter is, it only, its ability, this +1/+1 counter ability only triggers once per one or more cards leaving your graveyard, and that's really the limiting factor. If it was for every card, oh man, I actually think this would probably be busted, especially the fact that it has trample. So if you got it to be like a 5/5 or 6/6 by turn 2 or turn 3. It being trampling over, it was kind of brutal, but the fact that you're only really gonna get it slowly up there. Yes, you gain life when it dies, which I think is probably relevant. I'm still searching for a way to make it work efficiently, but right now it seems like a very much like a build around me card, and I don't think it's powerful enough to merit that requirement in Modern. So I'm not sure where Willow Guys is going to go. My feeling is it's not going to make much of a splash in Modern. But I'm still trying. So we'll see. But I don't think it's going there. Storm the Festival. Okay, so a lot of people compare this to Collected Company. Collected Company it is not. For many reasons. And I don't see any situation where you want to be playing this over really anything else in Modern. So if you forgot, Collected Company is an instant for 3 colors and a green, and you look at the top 6 cards of your library, put up to 2 creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom of your library. Cool. For 6 mana, 3 colors and 3 green, 3 green making this a lot harder to splash in multicolor. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, so 1 less. You may put up to 2 permanent cards, so that's a difference. With mana value of 5 or less, okay, so that's kind of better. From among them onto the battlefield, put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order, and you can flash it back for essentially 1 trillion mana because you won't be doing that in Modern. So, what are you doing? What are you looking for at this point when you already have 6 mana in Modern? You've already gone to 6 mana. What are you looking for here? And just imagine if you whiff. Already a Collected Company whiff is brutal. Imagine a Storm the Festival whiff. That's also pretty brutal. So I'm not sure where this actually fits in Modern. And it's sorcery speed on top of it, which is super relevant. Collected Company is instant speed, so you can do it at the end of their opponent's turn or when you really want to as a combat trick. Here it's sorcery speed. It's your turn, main phase. So I really think Storm Festival is not going to be going anywhere in Modern, but people were talking about it. Flame Channeler. So Flame Channeler, if you just look at it really, really quickly and you don't think about it, seems pretty cool in a burn deck or red X decks. When a spell you control deals damage, transform Flame Channeler. You know, in burn decks, you're playing plenty of spells that deal damage, so it's going to be transforming pretty quickly. And once it's transformed, it's permanently transformed. And once it is, whenever a spell you control deals damage, put a flame counter on Embodiment of Flame. And for a colorless, remove a flame counter from Embodiment of Flame, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So the original thinking here was, well, burn decks, they often they either win in the first 3 turns or they start having trouble because they've kind of emptied out their hand by the 3rd turn, 4th turn, and they're kind of like top decking. But if you have Embodiment of the Flame, late game, you have already some counters on it. It allows you to draw extra cards essentially and gives you a chance to cast them and ideally close out the game. So it sounds really cool, but where are you going to fit this in a burn deck? Realistically, all the creatures that are currently being played in burn for 2 mana or less are way better. So I don't really see this getting anywhere in Modern, but it was highlighted in some forms, and I think it should be addressed. I think it's really cool. Again, maybe it'll show up as a 1 of or a 2 of in decks. But, late game, this is already pretty bad, because if you top deck this, it's just like a 2/2 for 2, which does very little. So, yeah, Flame Channeler, not going to go anywhere. Death Bonnet Sprout, another card I really wish had at least evasion when it flipped. If it did, then this card we'd be having a different discussion here. So Death Bonnet Sprout for 1 green is a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. Then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, transform Death Bonnet Sprout. So 3 or more creature cards is kind of brutal. If it was just 3 or more cards, then this is, it's a different story. You could be playing this in a creature heavy deck, where you're playing 30 creatures or whatever, in which case maybe it's a bit more possible. But I don't really see where this is going. But let's just assume you managed to get that turn 2, maybe turn 3. It flips, it becomes a 3/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile a card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on Death Bonnet Halt. So, okay, every turn it gets a bit stronger, but it has no evasion. It's not flying. It's not trample. It's not, it can be blocked. So this is really going nowhere, unfortunately. I really feel if we were on the power up side of this graph, of this scale, this would have been way different. It would have been 3 or more cards, not creature cards. There would have been some sort of evasion on this creature, and they would have been talking. I would have been really happy, but not going anywhere. All right, let's get on to cards again that I think are going to not be seeing any Modern play, but I think we should definitely be covering in a Modern set review. Sunstreak Phoenix, at first glance, look really good. Only at first glance, because then when you start reading it over and over again, you realize, well, I think we have something better already, and I'm not sure where this would fit. So for 2 colors, 2 red, it's a 4/2 flying. If it's neither day or night, it becomes day. As this creature enters the battlefield, whenever day becomes night or night becomes day, you may pay a colorless and a red. If you do, return Sunstreak Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Okay. So what's the current Phoenix that's being played in Modern, or people want to play in Modern? Let's take a look at it real quick. Arclight Phoenix. 3 colors and a red, so already it's slightly easier to cast. Flying Haste. Okay, so it's a 3/2 instead of a 4/2, so 1 less power, but, let's read its effect here. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've cast 3 or more instants or sorcery spells this turn, return Arclight Phoenix from the graveyard to the battlefield. So, boom, it comes back to the battlefield, untapped, haste, ready to attack in again. So, the decks are really built around really cheap removal sometimes, or cheap spells, or, free spells. Very easy to get Art like Phoenix back. Sunstreak Phoenix is considerably harder to get out onto the battlefield, and it's not even free. If it was free, that would be a different story. I feel probably be a bit broken there. But it doesn't have haste, so there would be some control on it. But the fact that you have to get it flipped and pay 2 is a bit brutal. And not being able to attack when it comes in kind of sucks. So, no, not going anywhere. Teferi, who slows the sunset. I think Teferi cards in general slow the game. Maybe if there was a meme set, this what his name would be. But this Teferi is not replacing any of the current Teferis being played. 3 Teferi, whatever, obviously is not going anywhere. 5 Teferi is much stronger. So this is not going to be replacing Jace or some other Planeswalker or some other spell. It's always interesting when Teferis get printed because, at least on their record recently has been that they're strong in Modern. But this particular Teferi, I feel, won't be seeing much play. It's just not strong enough of an effect, or its effects aren't strong enough to justify it. Okay, on to some cards that I think are going to see at least some play, potentially in the sideboard of many decks. Fateful Absence is interesting. So it's destroy target creature or planeswalker its controller investigates. You don't really care. Here you're looking to destroy. It's instant speed for 1 white and a colorless. Now white has a lot of exiling effects, but this might be a cheaper alternative if you can't afford Solitude, for example. And you just want more removal options in the side. I think this is an option for you. It's pretty good in the sense that it's not really restrictive. It does kill creature or planeswalker, which is very relevant. I mean, if anything, the spell is kind of cheap for white. And the fact that your opponent's going to investigate is fine. They'll have to pay 2 mana and draw a card, which is, it's good for them. But ideally, you're not like destroying an Arbor Elf here. You're destroying a relatively big creature like a Murktide Regent, or you're killing off a Teferi or something. So Fateful Absence, I think, is going to see some form of play in Modern, at least in the sideboards. Talking about sideboards, Curse of Silence is where as well in the Death and Taxes decks or mono white decks. I think this is going to be seeing some form of play against control decks or whatever, or even combo decks, but probably more against control decks. Curse of Silence, when it enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells of the chosen name enchanted player cast cost 2 more to cast. So it doesn't even affect you. It only affects your opponent. So if you're playing the same spell, you're good. Whenever enchanted player casts a spell of the chosen name, you may sacrifice Curse of Silence. If you do, draw a card. So not only do they have to pay 2 extra, once they do, you can choose to just sack this card because you're good and draw a card out of it. So I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty strong. And I think it's going to be making its way into sideboards and many white X decks in Modern. Fading Hope is an upgrade, straight upgrade to Unsummon in many ways. If you don't know, Unsummon is a 1 blue instant, return target creature to its owner's hand. Here, Fading Hope, return target creature to its owner's hand. If its mana value was 3 or less, scry 1. In Modern, this is pretty relevant because a lot of creatures are mana value 3 or less. So the ability to scry 1 is a nice little bonus. If you were playing Unsummon, or if you're playing Vapor Snag, you might want to consider this instead, depending on what the meta is currently spitting out there. The ability to scry 1 is a nice little bonus. So you might value that over the extra damage that Vapor Snag deals, or the fact that Unsummon does nothing. It doesn't limit you on the target, right? So that's good. You could target anything. The point is that if its mana value is 3 or less, you get to scry 1. So I think it's pretty cool. We'll see. I think it's going to be limited in its play, but it's going to be yet another option for blue mages to pick from in their sideboards. I don't think main boards, maybe, but definitely in the sideboards. Sunset Revelry. All right, so this is sorcery speed, 1 white, 1 colorless. I think a lot of us that have been playing Magic long enough remember Timely Reinforcements. Let's take a quick look at Timely Reinforcements for 2 colorless and a white, so 1 extra mana overall. It's a sorcery speed as well. If you have less life than an opponent, you gain 6 life. Okay. If you control fewer creatures than an opponent, put 3+1/+1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield. Cool. Been seeing a lot of white decks in the sideboards, especially in control decks. Here, Sunset Revelry for 1 less mana, you're getting 4 life instead of 6, so you're losing 2 life for that 1 less mana. If an opponent controls more creatures than you, create 2 1 white human creature tokens, so you're getting 2 instead of 3. But you have a bonus here. If opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw a card. So that's a nice little bonus. You get the cantrip off of this. They're both sorcery speed. This is cheaper. I'm not sure where the math is going to fall on this. If the 2 less life and the 1 less body is worth the draw card. I feel that it is. You know, you're going to have to think like how often was that extra 2 life really worth it? Some games maybe yes, some games probably doesn't make a difference. You know, same with the bodies. Is the extra body going to be worth it, or would you rather have 1 less body but draw a card? I don't know. I think Sunset Revelry is pretty good. Fair to see where it's going to play with timely reinforcements. Some people might just like the bigger numbers on timely reinforcements and say forget the draw card, but I think it's an interesting addition to Modern. All right, some more cards I think are going to see play in, you know, the lower tier decks or you know, the not so popular but popular tribal decks. Champion of the Perished, obviously a reference to Champion of the Parish, which has the exact same effect for humans entering the battlefield. Now that champion has unfortunately died, and now they are Champion of the Perished, which has the same effect, but when zombies enter the battlefield. I think zombie decks are going to have a 4 of from now on, forever. So all those zombie players out there, congratulations, you just got a nice little upgrade to your decks. Tainted Adversary is also another zombie card that I think is going to be having a permanent stay in zombie decks, because for essentially 5 mana you're getting 3 bodies, even though 2 of the bodies are temporary. Technically they're still zombies, which is relevant. That means they could also be you know, their power can be upped by lords, zombie lords, and there are plenty of zombie lords. So Tainted Adversary, good early game, good mid game, good late, very good late game, because you get a bunch of bodies as you you know, inevitably draw a lot of lands. So yeah, pretty happy about Tainted Adversary for zombie decks. It's gonna be good for my zombie deck coming up for this Halloween. Stormkirk Blood Chief, I think is going to be going to a lot of vampire decks. Again, it's a nice little upgrade here. At the beginning of your end step, if an opponent lost life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target vampire you control. I don't know if it's going to be a 4 of, but I think vampire decks are definitely going to have fun with this, because they often focus on you losing life, and that means they get to, you know, power up their vampires at the same time, so it's a nice little bonus for them. Intrepid Adversary, it is a human scout, so that's relevant. Human is very relevant for 1 color, so 1 white. Has lifelink as a 3/1, already pretty decent for a human. When Intrepid Adversary enters the battlefield, you may pay colorless and a white any number of times. When you do, put that many +1/+1 counters on Intrepid Adversary. Or sorry, Valor counters, not +1/+1 counters, Valor counters. Creatures you control, including Intrepid Adversary, get +1/+1 for each Valor counter on Intrepid Adversary. So, you know, if you get to pay this a few times, boom, you're automatically boosting up all your creatures. This is a human. I think human decks are going to take an interesting look at this card. This gets better as the game goes along. If you manage to Aether Vial this in, essentially for free, you could waste your mana on just paying its adversary cost. Yeah, I think human decks definitely are gonna, you know, pay attention to this card and see if they can make them work in their existing shells. All right, don't worry, I'm getting to the cards that I think are gonna be seeing modern play, but I want to get through all these first. More cards I think are really interesting, at least at first glance, but inevitably I'm unsure right now where they're going to be in Modern overall. Smoldering Egg gives me Thing in the Ice vibes. Obviously, I don't think it's as good as Thing in the Ice, just because it's easier to make Thing in the Ice flip really quickly, whereas Smoldering Egg, you really gotta invest in casting spells and actually paying for them. They can't be free to make it flip. And when it does flip, I mean, fine, it becomes a 4/4 and it deals 2 damage every time you cast an instant sorcery spell. But you got to put a lot into it. Now, personally, I am building an Is It Dragon deck that has Smoldering Egg in it. But will it see primetime modern play? I don't think so. But I am curious to see what modern players come up with. Maybe control decks? Maybe. They put this down turn 2 or turn 3 when they feel it's safe. And then they just keep controlling you for the rest of the game, and eventually this flips, and then they kind of have a finisher. So maybe control decks are going to play around with this. We'll see. Sigardian Savior, A Flying Angel for 5. When it enters the battlefield, you make, and if you cast it, so you can't Aether Vial in or something, return up to 2 target creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So late game, this is like an instant board presence, which is very relevant. In white X decks, those 2 mana value or less creatures can be relatively powerful, and this could save you. This could win you the game by giving you a board presence after a board wipe or heavy removal, whatever it may be. You know, this might help you out. Now, what room are you going to make for it? Is it going to be a sideboard card? Is it going to be a 1 of or a 2 of in certain decks? I don't know. But it's a card that I noticed that I think at least deserves, some attention. But I'm not sure where it's going to go. Can't Stay Away. This is a cute card. A lot of cats in it, so already I'm pretty happy. So this is very much like Unearth, except it's 1 extra mana. Sorcery speed. It could also be flashed back, which I think is the reason why it popped out to me. So if you're playing white-black deck or white-black X deck, and you were playing Unearth before, Can't Stay Away might be a card you want to take a look at instead. Mostly because, first of all, you can flash it back. You're not dealing with cycling, and I think that alone is worth it. So you could use it more than once. You're gonna have to make the call on whether that extra mana is worth it or not. I think it is, in some number, but we'll see what the white-black mages say. Malevolent Hermit, I think, is going to be seeing some play, in control decks for control mirrors, maybe in combo decks. Although I feel like combo decks would be spending too much time trying to get this disturbed, so you can get the non-creature spells you cast, you control can be countered ability. That's really what you're looking for. But I think control decks might be interested in this, because essentially for 3 mana, you get to have a mana leak. And then you could disturb it back and then have, your non-creature spells be uncounterable. And it's also flying 2/2. So I don't know. I think control decks are going to pay attention to it the most. We'll see where it goes. I think it has a chance of seeing some play in Modern. Otherworldly Gaze, another card that interests me for Modern. It is instant speed, very relevant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard, and the rest back on top of your library in any order. And it also has a flashback for 2. So for a lot of those blue-red decks out there that want their graveyards to fill up really quickly, this is a pretty good way to do it. Thought Scour puts 2 in your graveyard, this one puts 3. Thought Scour draws you a card, this one doesn't. This could also just be a Scry 3 or a rearrange top 3, essentially. So it's very interesting. Very interesting. If it was a draw, if there was anywhere where in this card where it said draw a card, this would be like, I don't know, like a $50 card. But it isn't. So, keep that in mind. But I think the Murktide decks are at least going to give this a shot. Or the Darcy decks are going to give this a shot. So we'll see where it goes. Okay, so the cards that I think are really going to see Modern play. This is what you've all been waiting for. Consider 1000% seeing Modern play. I'm not sure it's going to push Murktide or Darcy decks to the point where something's going to get banned, but this is definitely going to push those decks higher up in terms of power level. This is definitely replacing Opt. A lot of those decks do play Opt in some number, or at least some variants do. Remember, Opt for 1 mana, instant, scry 1, draw a card. Here, consider, instant, 1 mana, surveil 1, essentially, draw a card. So instead of scrying, you could keep it on top, or you could put it in your graveyard, and then you draw a card anyway. Again, on top of it, if you have a Dragon Rage channel on the battlefield, their surveillability also triggers when you cast this, so you could potentially get 2 cards into the graveyard. So you're accelerating your Murktide casts, you're accelerating Delirium. This is going to be basically a must-have in your Delirium decks that are playing blue. A must-have. So this card is going to be, it's a common, luckily. So it should be easy to find, but it's going to be an expensive common, I think. We'll see how many actually show up in the market, but yeah, as long as Murktide is something, or DRC is something in Modern, this is going to be a go-to card. Cathartic Pyre. Dredge decks are going to love this, in my opinion. I think that's where a lot of its play is going to be seen. So, instant speed, 1 red, 1 colorless. You could choose one, so either deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, which is super relevant. So you're not just hitting creatures, you're hitting planeswalkers instead as well, which I wish a Braid did. And you discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. So it has a looting ability. It's like a Faithless Looting and a Rip Apart put together. But of course, you know, Dredge decks like the ability to draw cards because then they dredge and whatever, and then do their stupid thing. So yeah, I think Dredge decks are going to have a lot of fun with this, unfortunately, much to my chagrin. But this card is definitely seeing Modern play. So yeah, 100%. Last but not least, for my Modern set review, Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Memory Deluge. Yeah, this card is awesome. A lot of people are comparing it to Fact or Fiction. This is just better, in my opinion. Fact or Fiction always still relied on your opponent's choosing. But of course, you know, you would pick up cards in a way where it doesn't really matter what piles they made. Doesn't matter. In my opinion, Memory Deluge is better. It's instant speed, where Fact or Fiction was not. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the amount of mana you spend to cast a spell. So when you first cast it, it's going to be 4 cards you look at. When you flash it back, you're going to be looking at 7 cards. That's a lot of cards, okay? And then you're going to pick 2 of them, and the rest go into the bottom of your library in a random order. So you're going to get rid of a lot of cards you don't want to be drawing late game and picking the 2 best ones that you want. So this card, I'm not sure where it's going, but it's going up. This card is going to be seeing Modern play. I think some people are going to be placing Jace with this in many instances because it just does better than Jace. And yeah, maybe that's a crazy thing for me to say. I feel like this is going to be seeing a lot of play in a lot of blue decks. I want to be playing with this card now, so I'm building decks with it, not around it, but with it. It's a very powerful effect. I've just been playing some, solitaire games in some decks, and top 4 cards, pick 2, then 7 cards, pick 2, brutal. It's just really, really good. Really good rate. Yeah, keep your eye on this card. This card's going to be seeing a lot of play, and I feel like it's seeing a lot of play in Modern as well. That is it for my Modern set review. I hope you enjoyed it. I went through a lot of cards that I think weren't going to see play in Modern, mostly because, as you could see, there's only really 3 cards that I think are absolutely seeing play in Modern, and I didn't want to make this video like 10 seconds, so I made it 30 minutes instead. Maybe that's too much, but I wanted to go through everything. You know me, I like to be complete and accurate and verbose. So I hope you really enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what cards you think are going to be being seen in Modern or being played in Modern. And let me know what you think about my picks. I really like to hear from you. We can have a conversation about it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy my content in general, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really goes a long way. It helps me out a lot. If you want to become a member here on YouTube, hit that join button, which should be in and around that subscribe button. Check out the different membership tiers and the different perks you get at each tier. I would love to have you as part of my YouTube community officially as a member. And I think the membership tiers are pretty interesting, have some cool little features in there. So check it out. I would really appreciate your support. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, share my content on social media, watch my content start to finish like you're doing right now. It really does go a long way, so thank you for that. Lastly, if you want to become a patron, check out the Patreon link in the description of this video. Check out the Patreon rewards program. In a nutshell, you give me money every month. I use that money to buy a sealed product, which I open up on this channel, and then I give you back that money in the form of rares and mythics at the end of every year. The longer you're a patron, the more rares and mythics you get. Basically 1 rare mythic for every month that you're a patron. And the value of those rares are anything really between $3 and $15. Some of them go even higher, as you know. So even if you average out about $5 per rare, that's $5 a month, you get your money back, but odds are you'll make more. Anyway, all that information is on Patreon. There's a video on there that explains it all. We really appreciate your support either way. Thanks, and have a good one.